CIC Motorsports. I'm Mike, and this is the 1950 Ford Coupe. Now we're in the interior. They changed a lot of things from back in the days. You remember in the 29 and the 48, they did have some, gauges over here, but the dash was, a little bit different, very basic. These guys now have there's a lock in here for the glove compartment, which is now where a stereo is hidden. But before, it didn't even have a lock in there. So it was the first time getting a lock. They had, ashtrays now. This is where a stereo would be. It's been removed. The clock was up here, which is now have been converted over to a RPM gauge. And then we've added more gauges down here. So you got your volts, your pressure, and your temperature of the engine, so you can monitor the engine as you're going. You've got your choke is easy to do. Your key is now on the right-hand side, where before it was on the left. And I want to show you something. Everybody thinks this is the coolest stuff, modern day times, oh, look, we have push button start. Well, guess what? We have push button start. So that's nothing new. So everybody is keep going on about, oh, look, it's so nice to have push button start. Well, actually, they had that back in the 30s. Is down here by my foot, you can see that that's where the brights are. Originally, in the late 20s and the 30s, that was your push button start to start a lot of the vehicles. You would press it here. The switch has now been moved up because it's been nicer, so everything is nice and and within hand's reach. They put nicer, rear view mirrors in there. You've got side windows that open up in the front and rear. You've got these the regular windows, the crank windows, which have been around for a long time, but these are really smooth and really quiet. They really worked on them and did a great job, and they're phenomenal. Your headlights, your wipers, all your stuff on the front and the dash here. Your key again is on the right hand side. Your blower motor. You still got your stick shift. Originally was up here, and the column has been moved down to the floor, like I mentioned earlier. So this is all been moved to the floor to give it more of that race feeling, and not up here in the column. And then your gauge cluster has been, sleeked, kind of like that less is more deal. You got your fuel gauge in the corner, your oil, your battery and your temperature, and then your speedometer, which again, they were all kind of separate gauges, or you didn't have them at all. So that's been, all upgraded and done nice. This car obviously has been gone through and converted over to 12 volts. This is not the original steering wheel. It's a banjo type race kind of wheel that they would like to do back in the day in the 40s. Obviously the fuse panel has been moved down over here, has been redone. But I just love how the interior and everything has been done, where it's more luxurious and more, like cruising the countryside, more than getting beat up in like the old trucks. The old cars were not exactly smooth, but this was a completely different ride. This was, like we always say, it's like a Cadillac, but this was better than that back in the day. This was the flagship. A lot of people loved these cars. They were super popular and famous, and a lot of people did a lot of cool things to them. I personally like the back end of this, where, the coupe kind of comes in and it's not as long as the sedan. It gives it that sleeker, sportier look. But I don't know if the interior is original type or not. This was, again, redone before I had gotten my hands on it. But, you got the fold-down seats to get in the back. You've got other rear windows back there to get more comfortable for your passengers. So those windows actually pop open. So they tried to make it, a lot more livable car than what they've ever had before. And they're fabulous machines, and they changed the game back in the day. This was the game changer. So, we'll move on to the rest of the car. And of course, here we are at the back of the car. Not too exciting, but I wanted to show you how this all looks and how it works. So like I said, Ford put a lot of thought into this car. They spent over a year developing it, tons of people working on it, many teams working on every little aspect of it. You could tell how they did such a nice job with the chrome hinges to even hide the hinges in there to give you more room on the inside. You know, you got the reverse lights. Again, a lot of things were modernized that we consider modern. You know, this was the first time that it would have its safety glass seat belts. The seats moved up back and forth. You know, this one again has been changed, obviously, to be kind of a traditional hot rod. So the exhaust has come out and it's dual pipe all the way back to the chrome. It had a locking trunk. A lot of cars didn't even have locks back then. And then you would just squeeze it and lift it up. And you have a nice little locking mechanism to hold the trunk up for you. And that trunk is big and goes back quite a ways. Now you gotta remember, this car was kind of designed after what they call the business coupe, where a lot of businessmen would throw vacuum cleaners or whatever they were selling and go town to town, door to door, and then sleep in the car and just keep going trying to sell their stuff. And also it was designed for the family to actually start hitting the road and going on long road trips, to start seeing the countryside. You know, as you start seeing in the movie Cars, you know, the movie starts showing that everybody was hitting the road to have a good time. And that's what these things were kind of designed for. People got bigger cars. They got more and more room. They have more luggage to start seeing the countryside and start exploring, you know, the United States. It was really a cool time period. And again, you got lots of room for all sorts of stuff. And it's, you know, a lot of neat things that you could, over here in 1950, they actually hid the gas cap in the side of the car, where before it would actually stick out, but this is how they had piped it in. But on the other side of the car, you know, another way to tell that it's a 1950 is you actually had a door, where before this cap would just stick out. And you got some more pinstriping here. This was popular to put those little, you know, blue dots in or purple dots in, you know, for the tail lights. But it was really an amazing car, and you know, it's what again brought us up to where we are today. Otherwise, we'd still be driving, you know, like the 30s, 40 types with the big fenders and, you know, the doors that didn't line up very well. So it's really amazing car. And that concludes today for the 1950 Ford. I could spend hours on it. I love it. Look it up, do some research, know the history of the car. They're amazing.